This podcast is getting worse all the time. But here we are, back again. How are you doing, sir?
Well,
global pandemic aside.
I mean, well, if I may.
You may.
Theater of the mind, Carl. In case you can't tell, because you're not listening to the same audio feed as I am. I just cracked one open.
I heard a bottle cap. I was waiting to hear like the preceding liquid pour.
You will in the edited episode, I promise.
Okay.
So it's going, but it's Friday, and I'm letting the hair down, so to speak, a little bit right now. So we're hanging in there. I'm before I get, without getting too serious about anything, I'm lucky to. I still have a job. I'm able to work from home, which I've been doing for a couple weeks now, and everything's okay on that front. And I know for a lot of people that may not be the case. Yeah. So I'm okay. I'm very okay. I'm wishing everyone out there well, and I hope that they're doing okay, whatever the circumstances may be, because I know they might not be as favorable as mine right now. So doing the best I can, and I hope you are as well.
Yeah, we are too. I'm not going to lie, being quarantined with a 4-year-old is challenging.
Yeah, I have an 19-month-old almost, and I feel you.
Oh, no, sir. That's, you, I love you to death, and I know I have an idea what you're going through. You do not feel me on this one. Well, there's a world of difference between an 18-month-old and a 4-year-old.
If I may.
Granted, your dude, very mobile, very, very ahead of the curve as far as growth and development. But Drew, I'm not going to lie. I may or may not have gone on Amazon and searched animal tranquilizer bags.
Set for stun, as it were.
And then when those were all sold out, I might have looked up a taser.
Okay. Okay. I mean, at least you can speak to and somewhat, rationalize with a 4-year-old. At Grant's age, it's just like a free for all. So when we're trying to work, there is no rational conversation happening. It's basically just like, oh God, dude, please just leave me alone for an hour.
Yeah, we can kind of, it's rough because I don't like him having as much screen time as he's been having, but given the current situation,
what are you going to do?
Julie's working at home and I'm working at home. We can't send him to the mothers because they are very high risk and we don't want to take a chance.
Yep.
Julie's father especially is extremely immunocompromised. My mother and her husband have some issues as well, and we don't want to take that chance. So he's getting a lot more screen time than I would really like. But during the workday, it's what we got to do. We try to get some educational stuff on him, but a lot of times he just wants to play Splatoon and he wants to play Mario Kart or he wants to watch the stupid robot train show. So,
well, that's not all he's watching, from what I understand.
He has a new love, Drew.
Yeah,
and we'll kind of, we're not really standing on ceremony too much with the show, so I guess you could say this was news, but we'll kind of roll it into both. We're kind of officially, unofficially doing the "How was your week" segment right here. So Hasbro, owners of G.I. Joe, released.
And of Death Row Records, by the way. let's not leave that out.
There was an episode of our show on things you would be surprised that are owned by other things.
Yeah.
So Hasbro has a YouTube channel, and on that YouTube channel, they released initially. They've released more since then, but they initially released the two first miniseries of the original G.I. Joe cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
The original G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, and then G.I. Joe, Revenge of Cobra. And I have seen, since then, they have begun to release more, which I am thankful for because William likes him some G.I. Joe.
That's so awesome.
He has asked for it numerous occasions. He never turns it down when I offer it. We're on part 4 of the Revenge of Cobra.
All right.
He will occasionally let out a Yo Joe when it's not on, and he shouts it to the TV every time they shout it on the show. He shouts it with them.
See, quality holds up, man.
Yeah, that show does hold up.
For the most part, I'm sure. I mean, I can't. It's probably not all roses, but you got colorful characters. You got battle cries. You got lasers. You got all kinds of stuff.
We have some email questions, and some of them may skew into this, so we'll kind of save that for that. But yeah, just kind of hunkering down, social distancing as much as possible. I've left the house, I think, twice in just under a month, and both times were to go to the comic book store. So obviously there are priorities to be maintained. Working from home myself, I don't like it at all. I like being in the office. I like being around people. I got a great team I'm on at work, and missing them, and just like being home makes it harder for me to kind of stay focused on the tasks at hand. But I am getting caught back up with some reading. As you may or may not have saw, I did a live stream last week.
I missed it, but I'm glad you did it.
Yeah, I got bored, so I jumped on. I'll probably try to do that on the weeks where we're off, just to give the good people some content. Of course, you are welcome to do it as well if you like.
What kind of turnout did you have?
It's gotten well over 100 views.
That's cool.
So, yeah. Some people showed up, asked some questions, some of our regulars and some newer ones. But I went back and I reread and finished reading the IDW series Transformers Regeneration 1, which was very cool because I had also another trade, which was Transformers End of the Road, which was the last, I think, 5 or 6 issues in the Marvel Comics run. And then Regeneration 1 put a proper ending on that series. Because that was one where they were told, the series is going to be canceled after next issue. They had a lot of stuff that they weren't able to really tie up the way they would have liked. So IDW got the original writer and artist together. I believe Simon Furman. I'm trying to think of the writers. I just sent her over and grab my first trade. There's 4 trades total in the run. Yeah, Simon Furman. Oh, come on, pages. Thumbs, work with me. Simon Furman, Andrew Wildman. The original creative team on that Marvel book has 4 trades, and it finishes out the Marvel on the way they intended. So I did that, and now I'm kind of catching up with Saga.
Yes.
I'm in the 7th trade. I need to order. I know 8 and 9 are out. I'm not sure if 10 is out. Are they off their hiatus yet?
No, they're. Well, I mean, dude, the whole industry's on hiatus. So
yeah, we're going to cover that news as well.
But no, they're not. They're not back yet.
Okay, good. So I'm not too far behind. So yeah, Saga's great. Still the best monthly comic going today.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I've been at. Yeah, a lot of Mario Kart lot of Splatoon, a lot of Call of Duty.
Well, I wish I could say that I was doing a lot, but under these circumstances. But I mean, honestly, outside of a commute to and from work, my day to day really hasn't changed that much. I'm just working at home instead of at the office, so I don't really have this free time that you might think I would have in these circumstances. Again, I'm lucky that is my circumstance, but my read pile is still my read pile, and it's probably never going to get conquered. And I've basically been just taking care of the dude and working and playing a lot of Animal Crossing and Doom Eternal. More of one than the other, and probably not the one that you would think.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, why not go right into it, sir? Give us your reviews.
Animal Crossing's fantastic. It's much like a lot of Nintendo's releases tend to be at the time they're released, but more so now that they've really gotten these things. It's like the best iteration of something that was already good. So the Switch version is like the best iteration without radically reinventing what it is. It's very much every Animal Crossing that has ever been, but just refined and with enough quality of life improvements and new features and new things to make it just the best one yet in a way. So I'm really enjoying it and playing it a lot at my own pace. They kind of, they might have released it at a weird time because, basically the game is new to a lot of people. A lot of people never played Animal Crossing. I'm shocked to actually know that. I'm shocked to see this out there that a lot of people, this is their first Animal Crossing game. So, it's and they're really enjoying it. Like the game is doing very well from what I can tell. The people are really digging it. But because the game takes place in real time, Easter is coming up, or as they call it in Animal Crossing, Bunny Day. And from now until Easter, basically all of your so every day in the game there's random holes you have to dig up, and they're usually fossils or occasionally bags of money. You can hit various rocks in your village, and the rocks will disperse rocks, iron nuggets, gold nuggets, sometimes clay, kind of resources for crafting things. Or they'll also one rock in your village every day will, when you hit it, it will give you money. So every day it's, make it a point to do your chores and we'll run around the village and find the money rock, basically. And occasionally balloons will fly overhead with presents attached to them, and you'll use your slingshot, shoot down the balloon, you get a present. Usually, one or two a day at best. And you fish. We've talked about this before. You fish in the game, and fish are, varying degrees of common versus rare. The more rare, the more valuable they are, things like that. So you just kind of that's kind of the Animal Crossing day to day. Well, with Bunny Day coming up, there is now Bunny Day content in the game from now until Easter, and all those things I just explained, all these items that you generally want to look for, well, they're randomly replaced by eggs. There's a big egg hunt happening from now until Easter. So it's like, let's go fishing, and every other fish you catch is not a fish, it's an egg. And then you start digging up your holes looking for fossils because you want to get your fossils assessed so that you can donate the fossils to the museum and fill up your museum and build up your island's culture, etc. Yeah, well, every other hole you dig up now is an egg. And every rock you hit, you're probably going to get an egg. And it's getting really annoying. And the eggs are becoming a problem. So I think if you're new to the game, don't hold this against them. It'll be over after Easter, and things will return to normalcy until the next event. But yeah, I think Nintendo is sending a bad message with the eggs. But anyway, Animal Crossing's great. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it seems like an event like that would probably be more suited for just like a weekend.
A weekend, or the week. 2 weeks of this is like, oh my god, this is really going to go on for another 2 weeks with these eggs? Like, come on, man, you're killing me here. But anyway, so that's Animal Crossing, which is getting a lot of my time. Doom Eternal. So, yeah. I'm real mixed on Doom Eternal. And that...
So just some background for the listeners if they're newer to the show. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. But if you are unfamiliar, Drew is a big Doom fan. All the previous games, and a huge fan of Doom 2016.
Doom 2016 is like magic in a bottle, man. It is just mwah, chef's kiss. Doom Eternal is what happens when basically Doom Eternal is what happens when you have you're drunk on the success of your previous iteration, and everyone has ideas for the sequel, and whoever's in charge doesn't say no to any of those ideas. It is messy. It's overstuffed. It wasn't broken, but they went ahead and fixed a lot of things anyway. Now, I say all this, and as I'm playing it more, and I'm now on like the third, I just finished the third level of the game. It is getting better, but let me just say, they ramped up the difficulty to an insane degree. They added all these new combat mechanics, and they all have cooldown times you have to judge, and all of them are more or less essential to surviving the game. Like it's not fun. I mean, it's getting better. I'm starting to enjoy it more, but the first three levels have been nothing. They've been largely punishing and not in a rewarding way. Like they're more in a frustrating, oh my God, what did they do kind of way. And that irks me. Now, I have a friend who swears that after the third level, everything will start to click and, the game gets exponentially better. I trust him. And again, as I am now leveling up more and more and I have more abilities at my disposal, faster reload times and weapon upgrades and things like that, yes, it is getting better. But man, those first three levels is like being thrown into a meat grinder, and it's just so unsatisfying. Like, it's frustrating, and that is not fun. And Doom 2016 was like, yeah, I had challenges, but I never got like mad at it, and I never like wanted to just give up on it. And I've had moments in Doom Eternal where I'm like, what is going on with this game? Why is it this bad? And this is where all the elitist gamers will say, LOL, get good and all that crap, and I don't want to hear that nonsense. That's, you know what? Yeah. If you want masochism, go play Dead Souls all you want. I'm not here for that. And that's not what made Doom 2016 great. Doom 2016 got challenging. As you got new weapons, they ramped up the challenge. Like, it scaled really well. And it was designed really well. Man, Eternal is just, like, brutal. And, I'm struggling. And, again, though, I say this, it is getting better. But I cannot shake this feeling that, like, they learned all the wrong lessons from Doom 2016. Not to mention, a point of pride in Doom 2016 is in the first, 10 seconds of gameplay, you wake up from your hell coma, and you're greeted by, exposition voice that starts to tell you things, and the Doom guy just grabs the screen speaking to him and throws it aside, as is to say, we don't give a crap about cutscenes and story. We're here to destroy stuff. Rip and tear, as the tagline goes. And Doom 2016 embraced that to the fullest. Doom Eternal they drop you in. It feels like I missed a game of story in between. There is so much going on, and there is so much story and other characters and dialogue and cutscenes that they throw at you. It's like, did you guys miss the memo on the last game? What is all of this stuff? What's going on? Why am I being? Yeah. I'm being. There is a massive amount of lore being thrust upon me right now. why do I care about? Should I care about any of this? I have no choice but to see it all. Like, this is kind of whack. It's a little jarring. There's an analogy I don't want to use because I mean I'll use it just for dramatic effect. I'm not saying the game is crap. The game is not crap, but I can't shake this feeling that it's 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag.
Gotcha. Yeah, it almost seems like in modern gaming, when we do get like a single player experience, it seems that balancing good gameplay with scaling difficulty is becoming more and more rare and harder to do. And that, like, you want to have a game that's fun and engaging to play, but you don't want to sacrifice challenge just to have fun. Like, you still want it to be challenging.
Right.
Like, Spider-Man kept a really good balance of that.
Yeah.
It was challenging and it was constantly fun. And like you said, Doom 2016 kept a very good balance of that. But it seems like in a lot of our situations, it's just not the case. It's either one spectrum or another.
Yeah, I mean, it is getting... I'm 3 levels in, more abilities, more level ups for a lot of my stuff, and it is getting like, oh, okay, this is how it should feel. But the fact that it's taken 3 levels to get to that point for me is like that. Man, someone did not. That's poor design. I just, especially it's just disappointing because again, man, like 2016 was just so magical, and this one feels like, it just feels like a chore, and I don't like that. I was really anticipating this game, real disappointment. I mean, again, it's not. I'm not saying I hate the game. I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm not through it yet. Once I get further along, all of this is to be kind of reevaluated. I'm trying to be as open as I can to it, but my upfront impressions are just like, this game is not what I expected it to be, and that is not a good thing necessarily. But we'll see. But 2016 has a very special place in my heart. So, I hate when something like that tends to, let me down.
Right. No, that's understandable. So that's been our weeks. Dear listeners, welcome again. We appreciate you being here. If you would like to tell us about your weeks, send us any questions or comments, talk to us here at the show, you can do so at the following social media locations. You can follow us on Twitter at Devils Do Pod. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Devils Do Pod. You can email us at thedevilsdopod@gmail.com, or you can find all these resources available to you on our website, thedevilsdopodcast.com. Here we do have some emails from the... I'm pressed for time on this one, so we'll say from the Rick and Morty of the Devils Do, Mr. J. Gelsomino and Alan Waiters. I will let them fight over who gets to be who. Starting with Mr. J. Gelsomino. Julian Carl, I've seen certain places saying the pandemic is going to destroy brick-and-mortar comic shops. Do you see this happening? I signed up for Marvel Unlimited this week just to read some older runs of things. It's not bad, but it's not the same. Can you see yourselves ever going full digital? So this kind of spirals. This is going to be kind of a combo with a news story. So we'll kind of do the 2-in-1 here. So Diamond Distributors, who are the only distributors for physical comics in the country, announced that due to the current pandemic, they are ceasing distribution of new weekly titles. This is obviously not the news local comic shops wanted to hear, as they obviously depend on their shipments for new product to have on their shelf. And whereas this is not surprising, it's a piece of news that we hoped would not happen. And of all the things that are currently happening right now with this pandemic, obviously there are things that are more important than comic books. But this is kind of our wheelhouse. This is what we talk about. And so this is what we're going to talk about right now. Drew, how bad is this for our local mom and pop brick and mortar comic shops?
Oh, it ain't good. It is. It's not good. Comics are not a lucrative industry, so if there are no comics, those comic shops are in peril. And if the shops go under, ultimately, I mean, dude, monthly comics are. It's already a very niche medium. It's not a very big deal anymore. It is to people who have collected their whole life, like you and I, but we're kind of outliers now in the big picture of all this. Yeah. Comic books are very. I mean, the best-selling comic book today pales in comparison to the lowest-selling comic book of the '90s. You know, so it's just not there anymore. And if the shops go under, comics aren't exactly being sold at the drugstore and you know. In alongside periodicals and things like that. So if there's nowhere to get them, that's it. They're gone. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if we've brought it up on the show. I brought it up in conversation a couple times to people. Marvel and DC anyway. You're talking about now. I mean, there's two ways to look at Marvel and DC. One way is that they're backed by such huge corporations that they can withstand this kind of impact of a catastrophe like this. And then once things die down, they can continue to publish.
Yeah, just fire it back up.
Business as usual. Well, that's fine. Smaller publishers aren't going to have the same ability to withstand a crisis like this. So your IDWs, your Dynamites, your, what have yous, man, the money might dry up for them and they might not be coming back once things come back. And not only that, but the shops that used to sell the thing might not be there for them to have even product to get, out there. So it's all very uncharted waters, and it's not good. It's not good. The other way to look at the situation, it's also not good, is Marvel and DC are owned by big companies. Can they withstand something like this? Yeah, but you know what else they could do? And I've said this to people, and again, I don't know if I've talked about it here, but I'll bring it up again. When you're owned by a big company like that, they might have already been questioning why they're investing, whatever they're investing, into this niche cult market that ultimately is a fraction of a fraction on a spreadsheet that may or may not be in the black, and if it's in the red, it doesn't take much for one of them to just go like, what do we need these for? We own all the properties. We're just going to put it into $1 billion movie anyway. Who cares if we're still publishing it monthly over here for these nerds or whatever, And I've thought about the prospect of Marvel and DC just up and getting out of the game altogether in recent years, more and more so in recent months. And now, I mean, if they're already suspending operation due to no distribution, and obviously, no one to leave the house to go buy the stuff to begin with. But like, I don't know. I worry about the future of comic books, and I just don't know. This might be it. It depends how long this goes on, but it's a dark situation. Now, speaking personally, Alan asked if I'd ever go digital. No.
Jay.
I'm sorry, Jay. No. Forgive me. No, I won't. Once floppies are gone, dude, that's it. My life as a comics fan is basically over.
Yeah. I've always said that it's foreseeable that the medium will come to an end, not so much in our lifetime, but very possibly in our children's lifetime. I think this definitely accelerates that. But I don't think. See, we have to remember a couple things. Like you mentioned that, Marvel, DC, and probably all other places have ceased production. And yes, they have ceased production, but you also have to remember that comics are not produced. The comics themselves are not produced on a month-to-month basis. There's probably minimum 4 or 5 months worth of books printed, ready to go, ready to ship.
Sure.
So once, depending on when this thing gets to a point where Diamond can begin distribution again, there's not going to be a mad rush to get comics out because the comics are there waiting to come out. We had the second live show that we did when we did Iron Buffalo. We were talking about the evolution of the comic shop. And I think something like this is going to be much harder for those older guard comic shops to absorb than it's going to be for newer wave comic shops, because newer wave comic shops are very diversified. They don't just trade in comics alone. Like where I go for my books, Pulp 716, they are also a coffee house. So they're able to remain open because they serve food and beverage. And a lot of the newer shops do things like that. So they are more diversified, whereas the older guard shops are strictly just comics. And that's well and good for the older guard shops. But now we're in a situation where, we have this thing where even when it's over and Diamond resumes distribution, like there's no big event or anything that's going to drive the people to the shops other than being able to get their monthly books again. And the problem is, like, you're not going to have this massive influx of capital coming into the shop because you're just going to have monthly new books, unless, like, let's say, for example, this thing goes 3 months from today. Diamond's not distributing for 3 months. And then let's say, for example, that Marvel and DC, once Diamond announces they're distributing again, says, hey, we're going to ship the past 3 months all in one shot. I don't see that happening, but that would probably be the most beneficial situation for shops. Because then you've got monthly readers like you and I, who read multiple titles, coming in and making a much larger purchase than we normally would make. So it's like a massive capital infusion over what they are normally expecting to get. Also, I think there is something to take in consideration that given the scope of the pandemic and how everything is being affected, it is very possible that a lot of these shops' landlords will be lenient, I would hope, understanding that, there's no way these shop owners can pay their rent if they can't open up and sell a product. So, I mean, it's difficult because, like, some of the bigger shops out there, like, the Midtown Comics and things like that have online distribution, they're going to be fine. It's going to hurt. But once it resumes, because they have online distribution, they have way of getting that capital in, though not at the level they're used to, they'll be fine. Newer wave comic shops are more diversified in their product lines. I think they'll ultimately be okay. They're not all going to be able to weather the storm, but I think where we're going to have the hardest hits is in those older guard, tried and true been around for 20 plus years, more than that, shops are going to find this very hard to absorb, and I can only hope that their landlords can, be understanding, and we can kind of let them slide on this. But yeah, as far as going digital, I'm with you in the extent where if the physical copies are available, I'd much rather go to a shop and get the physical copy. I have all the respect in the world for Marvel saying they're not releasing digital. Originally, what they've been doing for the past 10 or so years is digital and print are available on the same day. And originally, when that was announced, a lot of us thought that was going to be like a big nail in the coffin of print, and it turned out it really wasn't. Like, yeah, people do it, but not in the scale that we feared they would. Marvel said that they're not releasing their digital issues since Diamond stopped distributing, which I think is very good. It doesn't because if they release digital with the print not coming out, that would just be a big middle finger to every comic shop out there.
Well, that's and this is not a fanboy interjection on my end. This is what happened. DC was going to do that. They were going to keep going digitally, and talk about spiting the retailers who have supported them for all these years. I think they've since backed off of that, but initially they were saying they were gonna keep going digital, and like, man, that would have been a major blow.
Yeah, from what I understand, DC is searching for alternate distribution options. But like, I was talking to the owner of the shop I go to, Pulp 716, and she said that like if they started doing that, a year ago or something, they'd probably be ready to go within the next couple months. But things like this take so long to set up that it's not realistic that they're able to find something like that.
I've pondered this for a long time, and I understand, the reason why. I know the history behind it. I know the pros and cons of it, but I still can't help but think that having all your eggs in Diamond's basket just doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, I
get it.
When I was talking to the shop owner, I said, listen, I don't want anyone to lose their job over this, but if Diamond went under, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And I feel bad for saying this, but if you talk to any shop owner, anyone that has to deal with Diamond as a distributor, Diamond is terrible. Diamond is horrible. Unless you're buying in massive, massive bulk, like something like a Midtown Comics or like something like that.
Yeah.
Diamond treats you like garbage because they're the only game in town and they know it.
Yeah, that shouldn't be, man. And again, I don't know much past the fact that they are the only game in town. I don't know what a multiple distribution system would look like for this. So believe me, I'm sure someone out there has much better grasp on all this. Why Diamond is actually like despite being terrible, the best way to do it, because the alternative might be worse. I know when Marvel tried to get away from them in the 90s, it went very, very poorly, so maybe history's on Diamond's side, but it's still no way to run a business, treating people terribly. So, I don't know. Again, this is a shrinking niche market, and, I want it to live forever, but I'm aware that it won't.
Yeah. So we will see. This is definitely a story we will continue to follow and pay attention to very closely. But moving on to Jay's next question, this is directed to you, Drew. If Figure 4 and Wrestling Observer ever split off, who would you choose, Brian or Dave?
Oh, God, what a Sophie's choice.
You're going to have to give us some quick background on this of what Jay's talking about.
Dave Meltzer is the leading journalist in the wrestling world and has been for probably 30 to 40 years. I mean, it's been his life. The Wrestling Observer newsletter has been the premier insider newsletter for wrestling for that amount of time. Now, people in the know or people in the business that want to discredit the newsletter because either they don't like being exposed for the poor business people they are, or if they have an axe to grind, or they're trying to protect storylines, or whatever reason you want to discredit a a journalist or a news outlet. Some guys have axes to grind with Dave, but generally speaking, he is correct the majority of the time. He is a quality journalist. He will issue retractions and apologies when he's incorrect. And he's the gold standard of wrestling journalism. Brian Alvarez runs Figure 4 Weekly, which the two are basically inseparable right now from a web standpoint. The Observer is published on f4wonline.com. Brian Alvarez is primarily a radio host. He hosts Wrestling Observer Live every day, and he does other podcasts as well, which are all fantastic. Brian is more of a personality than Dave. He's not really a journalist in the way that Dave Meltzer is. Brian is more of a host, and Brian is also a wrestler. I mean, he's winding down now. He's in his 40s. He's never really signed with WWE or anything like that, but he is a wrestler. He has experience in the ring, and he knows the business inside and out, and he's been involved in it for about 20 years or more. And but he's more of a host, and he has a lot more of a fiery personality as a host, and he's a lot of fun to listen to. And when he goes on a tear on something that he really hates, it is like audio gold. Let's just say that. But between the two of them, they make a good. They're a great tandem, and I've subscribing to the Observer with Jay has been just fantastic. It's a great resource for information, and the podcasts are amazing with Brian and Dave. Now, who would I choose? I would choose probably Dave, just because as much as I love Brian's unhinged takes at times, and just generally speaking, he's a great host. I do like factual information, and I do like to learn things. I do like knowing businessy stuff about wrestling and why things happen the way they happen, and Dave is excellent at those things. So just me personally, I would go with Dave, but I wouldn't spite anyone for going with Brian should they ever split up, but they never will. They're too good.
Alrighty. Carl, this is an awkward question. Sexier robot, RC or Dot Matrix from Spaceballs? Jay, I'm not attracted to robots in that way. But if you're forcing me to choose, I'm going to have to go RC, mainly because the Joan Rivers voice would be an instant no thank you.
Fair enough.
The Dot Matrix. So yeah, all right, Jay, thank you very much for the questions. Now moving on to Mr. Alan Waiters. Gentlemen, hope all is well. I'm progressing in the war against the bulge, down 21 pounds. Hashtag make Alan great again.
Alan
Carl.
Yes.
Alan's killing it.
He is killing it. I'm on the cusp of 20 pounds myself. So, I'm with you, Alan. We can do this. We're in this together. I'm down. It's right now, Carl. It's like 19. I want that. I can taste that 20.
Anyway. Are you still on the DDP yoga?
Still doing DDP yoga about 3 times a week, and ultimately, that is good. Don't get me wrong. It is a great thing to do. Exercise is fantastic. I recommend exercise to everyone. But one thing I just want to put out there and caution everyone and remind everyone. The words of Steve Austin, you can't out-train a bad diet. So, diet. Calories in, calories out. That will make all the difference in the world in your goals for weight loss. If you're working out, but then you After your workout, you go and eat like crap. I got bad news for you. Your workout was all for naught. So, diet. In my case, my calorie intake is slashed. I have slashed my calorie intake, and is it hard at first? Yeah. I'm not trying to derail Alan here. I just want to get this off my chest before we continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not going to lie. It's not fun at first, but you adapt, and your appetite decreases as you intake less over time, and you don't want those big, ungodly portions anymore. And, you will stop yourself from taking the extra slice of pizza or, indulging in the late night snack. Yeah, don't do that. After dinner, call it a day, man. That's it. Go to bed, wake up and have breakfast. Read your food labels. Know your portion sizes. That information is there. It's there for you. Use it to your advantage. Know what you're putting in your body. Know what you likely are expending every day for your lifestyle, and eat accordingly. And if you do that, I promise you, if that's all you do, if you don't exercise at all, but you adhere to a strict caloric limit for yourself, you will see results. And exercise on top of that, man, now you are doing it right. You will achieve all of your dreams. Anyway, 21 pounds for Alan. That's awesome, dude. Congratulations. That's killer. That getting to crossing the 20 threshold is going to be great for me. I feel like I'm kind of stuck where I'm at right now, but I will get there. So great job, Alan.
Alrighty, indeed. Drew and Carl, have you guys thought of virtual board gaming and have your audience watch us play? What are the best board games you recommend to your listeners during the time of quarantine? I have no way of streaming a board game.
That seems like it will require a lot of coordination.
But as far as virtual board gaming go, obviously, since this thing has been going on, we have not been able to have our game night. And another thing that was momentarily robbed from me at the beginning of this whole thing was X-Wing. I have since found a way to X-Wing. Yes. So there are two programs out there that have seen a massive spike in usage, obviously, since the pandemic hit. The first one is a program called Vassal, which is basically just kind of like a JavaScript program. It's very basic in its visual presentation, a lot of hotkeys to learn, as Java is like to do. But it's free, so what have you. On the other end of the spectrum is a program that you can get on Steam. And actually, I believe Steam Today just started a 50% off sale on this program the week after I bought it. Isn't that's so great. It's called Tabletop Simulator. And this program, you buy the program, then you can buy games to play on it. And the games you can play on it are board games. Like you can purchase Blood Rage for Tabletop Simulator and play Blood Rage. And it's from what I understand, the program was designed with virtual reality in mind, but works like it takes a little bit to kind of learn how to move and rotate and zoom in, zoom out on the camera. But once you do, the controls are very intuitive, and it's like a full graphical presentation of the board game and all the pieces and whatnot. And so like the app itself on Steam, when I purchased it was $20, but now you can get it for $10. And then the games that you purchase for it are about $5 to $6 pop. The X-Wing one, because it is not official, was free, which is nice. But it's still like people are tending to like it better than Vassal because it's an actual representation of the board, and like you're moving the pieces around like you normally would. So, but as far as games that are on Tabletop Simulator, Wingspan that we played with Alan is on there, Blood Rage, which I know is one of Jen's favorites. A bunch of the Tiny Epic games are on there, both Tiny Epic Westerns and Tiny Epic Galaxies are on there. So, I mean, the idea of virtual board gaming is definitely not off the table, no pun intended. But I feel as much in my hesitation to do our show virtually as we're doing it now, you're at your place, I'm at my place, we're doing this over Skype, you definitely lose something in the virtual world. So it's not that I'm opposed to trying it out. You know, if you guys like said, hey, we want to try this, or even like, because I think the only game we really all three of us have is King of Tokyo, and just kind of set up a Zoom meeting and, you know, kind of try to figure out a way to do it that way. I'm not opposed to it. I have no way in which we would be able to stream that. Yeah, like my cameras are either on my phone or on my laptop. I don't think setting either one of those up for a stream is going to look good.
Yeah. It's funny. They do have a way for us to play games together in some sort of streaming video format. It's called video games. Should we want to, we could play video games together on the internet.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, you, me, and Alan need to get into like a Mario Kart battle or something. So we all got Mario Kart.
It's all this coordination. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, and I don't have time for my friends.
I mean, I do, but this, come on.
I don't even think Alan's on my friends list on my Switch, because I never got his 68-digit friend code. Stupidest thing.
The Switch online setup is also, not necessarily the best. So anyway, it doesn't matter.
So yeah. So that, as far as games that I recommend during the quarantine, Marvel Champions has a single player mode. I've played a couple times. It's great. I'm not really sure beyond that. You really got to look for, if you have a spouse or someone you're living with that is in the games, then great. There's some stuff out there. I know Sagrada just came out with a mobile app, so you can kind of play games with others across that. But yeah, I'm not really sure what to recommend as far. Oh God, what's my son crying about now? Apparently, he might have given the volume and intensity of the cry. He must have done something bad, and Julie had to turn off the Switch. Actually, no, it's his bedtime. So that's probably what's wrong. So yeah, what do you got as far as recommendations for games to play during quarantine? Non-video games.
You're on your own, dude. I don't know. Solitaire.
Dynamite dropping, Drew.
Board games without friends is no fun. So
yeah. Carl, what is William's favorite episode of G.I. Joe so far? How do the old cartoons from the 80s stack up now? Alan, I don't think he has a favorite episode so far. He loves them all. As far as how do they stack up, G.I. Joe is one of the few that maintains a high quality, even by today's standards. Yeah, there's some stuff happens here that you're like, physics doesn't work like that. And yeah, like there's guns going everywhere. No one ever actually gets shot. And, people always manage to bail out of the vehicle and things like that. But it still holds up. It's still really great. Actually, I forgot that early on in the series, it wasn't Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow that were the big rivalry. It was Storm Shadow and Spirit.
Forgot about that.
It makes sense. Also, in the first miniseries, I always thought it was strange how the Cobra had the traditional tried and true G.I. Joe sound effects for their weapons, but G.I. Joe had more realistic gunfire sound effects for their weapons.
See, I had no memory of that, but I would
go back and watch it. It's jarring.
I would guess that was maybe the case for the first miniseries, or the first 2 miniseries, and then once it became an actual series, like picked up with seasons, they probably changed that.
Yeah. So, yeah, but he's loving it, and they hold up really well. I definitely recommend checking them out. Drew, will you get a drone? Name it Celestino 1. Have a little long, cold, dark T-shirt, and release the hounds while having a little bit of the bubbly.
Oh, yes, I will do all of those things. If you don't know what we're talking about, you have to watch AEW, and by to a larger extent, the Broken Matt Hardy saga, which now spans several wrestling companies, but is all brilliantly amazing, and it is now gone to AEW, and Chris Jericho fits right in because he's just so game to Chris Jericho is incredible, and he is so perfect to just fit right into all this madness and not miss a beat, and it has been great so far, and it's only been 2 weeks, and it's been great.
I caught I'm not a regular subscriber of Chris Jericho's podcast, but I downloaded the episode where he interviewed Matt Hardy, and it was cool. I learned a lot. Okay, then Alan goes on and asks, you got like 3 questions.
Oh, God. That's okay.
Is Animal Crossing the perfect video game right now, since it was a game of stuff you want to do outdoors but currently can't?
It's a great game for our times, yes. It's
apparently, if by outdoors you mean searching for eggs, then yes.
Yeah, really. No, it's a good... if we need something to relax us and give us some comfort in these trying times, Animal Crossing is great for that. But I will caution you, if you have any sort of... how do I want to put this? There is a materialistic competition streak in Animal Crossing if you want to look for it, and if you are looking online and seeing other people's islands in various states of luxury and people with it's like watching MTV Cribs in a way, or whatever, like seeing people's houses that are way nicer than yours and you get jealous and upset, like that can maybe ruin it a little bit for you. So I would caution you to just be aware of that, and don't make it a competition. Just enjoy it at your own pace, which is what it's there for. But there's also a strong cautionary tale in Animal Crossing about capitalism. If you want to get real deep, and it's not great. So, but again, don't let that ruin the game for you. But just be aware next time Tom Nook takes. Now, granted, his loans are no interest, so that's nice. But they are kind of predatory in that you have no real alternative but to go into debt to Tom Nook to get what you want in the game, and he makes you do all the legwork for all the things that you want while doing nothing himself, really. So, there's a metaphor in there somewhere. Anyway.
Okay.
It's a great game. It's a great game.
And lastly, Drew, what new recipes have you come up with in the kitchen since the quarantine?
Oh, man. Not so much anything new, but, I whipped up a good broccoli chicken pasta with some pesto and yeah, it was good. Last night I did that. I've been cooking up a storm. I mean, just not necessarily... I guess out of necessity, but I do enjoy cooking as it is, but I'm using current events to kind of take advantage of that to a degree and cook more. But I'm making a lot of pizza, ironically, which I never really have done before, but now I'm making my own dough a lot more, and it's been really great. I've got it down to pretty much a science now, and it's really, really good. So I'm enjoying making pizzas. I've made... I had a little Thanksgiving dinner last Saturday in March. I made stuffing and a turkey. That was great. I've done chicken parm. I've done, all my staples. I made sauce. I've done all kinds of great stuff. I'd like to make a beef stew, I think, before April's over. Anything else going on that I've made? Yeah, that's about it. Just, yeah. I am cooking a lot more, I feel like, but I enjoy it a lot.
Cool. All right. Al, thank you very much. That's going to do it for his questions and the questions of the week.
All right. Cool.
And, based on the questions that were asked, pretty much covered what we had for the news. So, yeah. Unless you can think of anything else, Drew, from the news.
It's all bad, so no.
Yeah. We're here to uplift and provide distraction during this time. So we don't, a lot of the news right now is not favorable.
No.
So, especially in the entertainment section that we currently dabble in. So we'll sum up the news like this. Everything you were waiting for has been pushed back.
Yeah, that's really it. And there's nothing more to say. I mean, I saw Marvel.
Every news story is a derivative of that.
Yeah, I saw Marvel put out like an updated schedule, and it's like, you know what? Even this is like optimistic at this point. Now, like, until there's some semblance of normalcy on the horizon, anything that you see right now is speculative at best. It's just,
right.
You want news? It's me shrugging my shoulders, going, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's been pushed back. Yeah. That's the news.
That's really it.
We're not going to have a summer movie season.
No. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Which, I mean, is it the worst thing in the world? I don't know. That's a discussion for another time.
That's a deep question.
Yeah. It's kind of funny.
That could be asked about a lot of stuff right now, and I'm sure. I don't know.
Right. There's a certain, because actually this past week I watched Endgame again.
Yeah.
And there's a certain level of truth to the scene with Steve and Natasha early on in the film, where Steve drops by the compound to do his laundry, and he's like, hey, you know what? Saw a pot of whales in the harbor today. And, less people, less pollution, things like that. And yeah, we don't want it to be because of what's currently going on, but like they've released studies that, like, since this thing started, air pollution has dropped dramatically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what I'm saying is, people feel like Captain America. Try to look outside. Yeah. Shave the beard, look on the bright side, be like Cap.
I mean, some would say Cap should have kept that beard.
Yeah, some would say that, but
it was majestic. I'm not going to lie.
It was majestic. It was. So that'll kind of do it for the news. Which brings us to the subject this week. Last week we started our deep dive look at the Star Wars films with the original film Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. This week we go on to arguably the most important Star Wars film.
Easily.
Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, like we've said with this, we don't just want to sit here and talk about how cool it is and give a beat for beat review of the film. If you're listening to us, you have most likely watched Empire Strikes Back. You have most likely watched Empire Strikes Back multiple times, possibly, like yours truly, in the triple digits over your lifetime.
Most likely, yeah.
So, how we're trying to approach this is just kind of to take a deeper dive and look at why these films have had the staying power they've had. Empire offers a very unique opportunity here because we see how storytelling Empire is a great example of how storytelling is organic and evolves as it goes on, and shifts and changes, and things that weren't necessarily planned or intended at the moment the pencil was put to the paper to write the story, kind of evolve and develop. And we see Empire is, if you were to draw comparisons, I mean, obviously, like, two of the biggest things going on right now in pop culture is, Star Wars and the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I thought you were going to say Tiger King.
No, no, I don't. If you ask me how much I care about Tiger King,
probably about as much as I do, Carl, which is not at all.
Okay, great. Moving right along. So if you were to draw a comparison, if I was to draw a comparison between Empire and a film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I would draw the comparison between this and Captain America: Winter Soldier.
I was going to say it's got to be Winter Soldier. It's the game. It's the game changer.
Yeah, it's the game changer. It's where the story turned and showed that it can be a much more serious tone. I don't like to necessarily use the phrase darker tone, or finger quotes, but a more serious tone.
Sure.
And just like everything kind of changes here. The whole franchise pivots here from the direction it was going in the first film and takes a very hard left in Empire and doesn't really ever turn back.
I would maybe clarify it a little bit. I don't know that it changed. I don't know if it's a hard left, but what it does is all the stuff in Star Wars and A New Hope that was on the fringes, or the bigger world that was maybe alluded to or hinted at, whatever you thought you understood or knew after Episode 4, Empire elevates and expands all of it. And it doesn't get lost along the way. Like, it doesn't stumble. It expands everything that was already there, and it raises the stakes even higher. And it does it perfectly organically, and it doesn't force anything. It just makes everything that much bigger. And in the words of Obi-Wan in the previous movie, it has taken its first steps into a much larger world. Empire is that larger world, while remaining very laser focused on our protagonists and their struggle. It doesn't get lost in that larger world. It shows it to you. It shows you a lot of different parts of it, but it's also focused solely on our characters and why we love them. And everyone kind of grows. So Luke in the first movie, in A New Hope, he doesn't really have an arc, so to speak. He's a farm boy who wants to get off the farm, and he does. Okay, cool. Leia, she's Rebel Princess at the beginning, and she's Rebel Princess at the end. Cool. Han has an arc. That's fine. But in Empire, okay, well, now Luke's got an arc. He wants to be a Jedi, and he's going to get taught some hard-ass lessons to get there across this film. Han and Leia's arc, obviously, they both have an arc in this film. It's a very satisfying movie. Like, it's a satisfying film to watch. The script is great. The set pieces are great. It all holds together amazingly well. None of it feels contrived or eye rolling. It dates very well. Like, none of it feels dated. I remember watching it in the last maybe 5-ish years with my sister and my dad, because my sister's kind of into Star Wars, but she's like way younger, so the prequels are still kind of like not a dirty word to her, but whereas they are to me. Right. But we watched, hey, let's watch Empire Strikes Back. And we watch it. I'm just like, man, this movie is like bulletproof. This thing is for in all the ways that Star Wars is magic, Empire is like more magic.
Right, but it's a very different kind of magic.
Oh, totally, totally different than the first one.
And it's also like it's in that holy trilogy of second movies that are just mind-blowingly so amazing and so much better a film than the original.
It's not always the case, though.
The other two being Godfather Part 2 and you could say The Dark Knight.
I don't know. Look, there's been a lot of sequels that are not as good. You know what I'm saying?
Right, obviously.
Empire is in the company of the ones that are as good as the original or better. So, I don't want to get too crazy about it, but like the reason why Empire I think stands out is that it's the best of the original trilogy. If there was never a third, I don't know that Empire necessarily gets put on the pedestal that it does because Star Wars is such a great movie unto itself. But because it's like the best of a 3-movie set, that it has been, it obviously elevates it more in our mind. But hey, what an elevation! It like I said, it just takes everything and brings it up that much further, expands the view that much further.
Right, and again, kind of like going back to what I was saying about how storytelling is organic and changes as the story progresses, sometimes not intentionally from what you set out to tell. And I think it's important here to really pick up with where we left off in Star Wars. When we were closing up our episode on Star Wars, we'd realized that we never mentioned Vader throughout all of Star Wars.
That's interesting. Yeah, we didn't talk about Vader.
And Vader, Empire is essentially Vader's film.
Yeah, kind of.
And he goes through such a change from what he was in Star Wars. And you said it a couple times, and I think, and this is really got a good opportunity for you to expand on this. Maybe not just right at this moment, but we'll get to it eventually. You said that Vader, and folks, by the way, spoilers if you haven't seen it, you said that Vader being Luke's father is the best and worst thing to happen to Star Wars.
Yeah.
And eventually, obviously we're going to land on that, but we really have to see, we take a look at Vader in Star Wars. And he's
a henchman.
Yeah.
That's really it.
He is the top henchman, and Tarkin is the main villain.
Right. Vader's just a guy with a cool helmet who works for Tarkin.
Right. And what the original Star Wars trilogy doesn't have that a lot of genre trilogies have had in recent years was knowing that there's going to be more than one film. The original Star Wars trilogy is kind of disjointed in that Star Wars itself is very self-contained. Yes, there is an opening left for a sequel at the end of it because Vader just kind of spins off and doesn't really get a proper comeuppance, if you will, in the end.
Right.
But it's very self-contained. And then it becomes the phenomena that it becomes, and we know that we're going to get more films. Empire is, kind of continues a lot of the groundwork that was laid in Star Wars. And Jedi, whereas still being a sequel to Empire, still feels like a very different film than Empire felt.
We'll talk about Jedi when the time comes, but yeah.
Yeah. But Vader changes so much from Star Wars to Empire.
Yeah.
In that he's just a henchman. Yeah, in this one, he is, we see the first appearance of Palpatine in Empire, and we see that, he is still not, Supreme Commander of the Imperial Forces. He is essentially 1A.
Yeah. So it's weird. Like he both gets promoted and yet demoted in the same movie. So he's not working for Tarkin anymore, and he's very much the lead antagonist of the picture. So he's promoted, but then it's like, oh, but remember that guy we told you about in a line of dialogue in the first movie? Well, here he is. Granted, he is a half chimpanzee head, half human lower jaw in a hologram, but still, it's the Emperor. We do get to see him, and Vader bows before him, so we get a little more of that dynamic. And yeah, Vader is now serving the Emperor directly. And again, the Emperor, who was mentioned only in passing in A New Hope, we now see him for the first time for reals.
So let's get to your statement of Vader being Luke's father, being the best and worst thing that could have ever happened to Star Wars. So,
okay.
Go.
Go. Oh. Well, let's look at it, okay?
I'm unleashing the hounds.
Okay. It's the best thing in that, like, what a cliffhanger, what a dramatic moment that is. And think about, again, Luke is our POV character, right? And he is, in the first movie, he learns from Obi-Wan this kind of like hidden history of his father that he never knew, his life. And his father was like this great pilot. He was a hero of these mysterious clone wars, and he did all this stuff, and Luke didn't know. And oh, by the way, he was betrayed and killed by a pupil of mine named Darth Vader. And now, like, you have this. So Luke's desire to get off this planet is now intertwined with this pseudo, revenge-driven, to a degree, mission against Vader personally. So that's kind of in his mind, like, hey, this guy killed my father, and he's also in the Empire, and now I am the kid who blew up the Death Star, the Empire's big weapon. Now I am like, the lead. I'm the lead. I'm leading the charge against this Empire at this point now. It's somewhat personal, despite the fact that the characters have only briefly face to face, if at all, in the film. So Empire's trajectory is about Luke learning the ways of the Force like his father, becoming like his father, and it all builds and builds and builds until he has to confront the guy who killed his father, and then again, spoilers for a movie that is like as old as we are. He is his father. What a moment! What a moment! And that's after. That moment comes after our heroes have been through the ringer. Luke has just had his hand cut off, and he is ready. I mean, this is like, it's dire straits. It is the moment of truth, and we get this reveal. And Luke reacts as one might, learning this information, with the no heard around the world, and resigns himself to whatever fate he resigns himself to when he lets go of the pole and just falls down the pit and ends up surviving and whatnot. But that's basically the end of the movie. There's no closure from this. So as far as like endings go, Empire leaves you with so many questions and so much to unpack, and you wouldn't get an answer to those questions for 3 more years. Yeah, and it also taught it taught George Lucas a small lesson in that a twist can be a powerful thing, and this is where the worst thing. This is where the worst. So the reveal is the best thing because it's amazing. It's just, again, from a character standpoint, from a surprise standpoint, a twist standpoint, it's just dramatically amazing. However, like I was saying earlier with Doom 2016 versus Doom Eternal, sometimes you can learn the wrong lessons. Oh, well, we had a twist. We had some kind of familial twist. We better do that again. So what happens in Jedi? We get this revelation that Leia is Luke's sister, and we'll talk about Jedi when the time comes, but like, that wasn't part of the plan all along. Like the whole notion of a grand plan really starts to fall apart on its face really quickly when you stop and look at the whole thing. And you feel like it was only there because we had to reveal something in this movie because we did this big reveal in Empire and everyone loved that, so we have to do it again. And okay. And on top of that, the moment was so powerful that Vader's prominence started to overshadow his perceived prominence in these films, started to overshadow his actual importance to the events in the Star Wars kind of universe. And what did that get us? Well, that got us the prequels. And ultimately, I could go on all day about that, but I feel like
we'll get there.
The Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker specifically, it just overtook the franchise. Now, that happened over time, so I'm trying to keep things centered on Empire here. But This is Luke's story, okay? And the moment that Vader reveals as his father is kind of like the first step into like, nope, it's not. And George being George, oh, it's really Anakin's story all along. Well, no, no, it's not. He was just a guy. I
mean, you go back and you watch Star Wars, then you watch Empire, and anyone who has any experience, at least even trying to attempt to tell a story, can tell you that Vader was not Luke's father when Star Wars was made.
Right.
And became Luke's father at some point in the process of Empire being made. And again, that goes like stories change and go in different directions from when you first set them to paper.
Sure. No, I'm not.
Stories take on an organic growth of their own. And I would even argue if they don't, then it's not that good a story.
No, I mean, reaction is part of the storytelling process. If people are not receiving something well, you're probably not going to want to double down on it, in the story going forward. So, that's all fine. But seeing as, where it all ended up, I definitely have reservations about where it ended up. But anyway, best and worst thing to happen to Star Wars. Because let's look at it this way. What do we know about Star Wars in the first movie and in an Empire? We kind of know that there's this huge galactic community. Like we've said before, the outskirts of it, the Mandalorian kind of stuff, these seedier underbelly parts that we don't, for whatever reason, get to see that much anymore, or at least didn't get to see for a long time. All these interesting infinite possibilities that we had. Once Vader reveals he's Luke's father, now it's all about this family dynamic crap, and it's all about the Force and destiny and Jedi versus Sith and all that underbelly stuff, all those other angles, all the back alley crime stuff in the cantina and the smugglers and all this other stuff that was really interesting and cool becomes totally superfluous and unimportant at the expense of all this familial drama, Destiny, Force, Jedi, Sith stuff that just gets forced at, like, that becomes Star Wars, period, after this point. Before that happens, all the other stuff in Star Wars is still kind of a valid part of Star Wars. And I mean, it's all valid, but you know what I mean? Like in the first movie, it's all kind of on equal footing. Once you get to Empire Strikes Back, Luke, I am your father. Well, now suddenly that's kind of like the pivot point where now it's about this. It is about Jedi versus Sith. It's about robes and councils and whatever. Like that becomes the thing. And all the other cool stuff gets swept under the rug to a degree.
Well, see, I don't line up with you 100% there, because when you go back and you look at the original trilogy, almost roughly 90% of the original trilogy takes place in those areas that you're talking about. You know, backwater planets, the undesirable places. Like you look at Star Wars, it starts out on Tatooine, which is like the backwater of the backwater in the Star Wars galaxy. And for the first quarter of the movie, they're on Tatooine. Next rest of the movie, they're either on the Death Star or they're in space.
But that's in the first movie. That's in the first movie. Before
Empire. Yeah, no. Empire starts out on Hoth, where there's literally nothing but snow and tauntauns and wampas.
Right.
Then moves to Cloud City, which is like it's a nice looking place, but it's not Coruscant. It's not, it's basically a very fancy gas station in a planet that's not, again, kind of part of the Outer Rim. And then we're in Dagobah, which is a swamp. And then Jedi, we're back at Tatooine, and then we're on Endor, which is just a forest. So we're not really they're like in Empire. And,
I'm not speaking
Jedi.
Well, just to clarify, you're talking about locations specifically. I'm talking more thematically and what the plot is about, what the narrative thrust is. And
well, no, I get that, but even with Empire and Jedi, the word Sith is not mentioned in either film.
No, it's not. But
it's something that is created in a lot of the ancillary material, and Lucas creates it to give a name.
I get that. I get that, but the narrative thrust shifts from being Star Wars being this Wild West in space kind of thing to being very strictly, or at least the majority of it being about this old religion-y good and evil thing. Destinies and prophecy and yada yada. That becomes the thrust of all of it. Like it starts the moment Vader reveals that he's Luke's father, and then Jedi takes that and goes that much further with it, and then here we are, prequel trilogy, sequel trilogy, and that's kind of what Star Wars has been. But it all starts more or less when Vader reveals he's Luke's father.
No, I get that. I don't disagree with that. I think a lot of what you're referring to developed more in the ancillary material that came after the three films, and in the years of fans, contributing to what at the time was canon, now considered, the legend and things like that. But just kind of getting back to Empire with Vader having the arc that he has in Empire, especially the moments in James Earl Jones' performance,
he's excellent.
Incredible. Really gets to stretch his legs in this one. Yes, it's Luke's story, but I still feel that this is Vader's movie.
Oh, dude, he's great. He's fantastic in it, and he gets a lot of great scenes, and you get to see him in various states too. Like the scene with him in his pod with the helmet coming down, and you see the back of his scarred head. Like, man, talk about capturing the imagination. We have no idea in A New Hope what was underneath that mask or whatever. And in Empire, we get just the smallest of glimpse that this guy is there's a guy in there and he's messed up, and it's captures the imagination. It's wild. And Star Wars was really good at that when it was really good, when these movies were made, man. It was really good at capturing your imagination and making you just lighting it on fire, making you think what else is going on, what more is out there, what have I not seen, and how cool it all could be.
Right. I think one of the genius things about Empire is, and something that oftentimes gets forgotten when people are discussing Empire because it is so much Vader's movie, the whole movie hindered on a puppet.
Yeah, it kind of did.
Hindered on a glorified Muppet, if you will. And
if Yoda doesn't work, if Yoda doesn't work, like a lot of the movie's kind of sunk.
Yeah. And just, and something that, say what you will about the sequel trilogy, one of the things that I'm really glad that they did was get back to practical effects when possible.
Absolutely.
Because
dude, you won't get a complaint from me here.
Yeah. Yoda is just so believable and works so well as a visual character. It's obviously when we first see this movie, we're kids, so our minds are more apt to accept this as a living, breathing character.
Yeah, but it holds
even
up,
now,
dude.
So many years later, you go back and watch it, you're like, that's fantastic. That just works so well.
It's a great looking puppet. It's expressive and it looks good. And Frank Oz's performance as the voice obviously helps tremendously. But
and working the puppet.
Yeah,
when people forget that performance, there's two parts to that performance. There's the voice, and then there's the actual movement performance that he does there.
Yeah, and it's great, man. Like that Yoda is a marvel unto itself. Which makes it all the sadder when you see the prequels with the CGI. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that. But Yoda's magical in Empire. And again, like I don't want to talk about the prequels. Yoda the puppet being the Jedi Master is like that is a lesson in the Force. Like if you watched A New Hope and you get this vague concept of what the Force is and what it can do, and there's these guys with laser swords and they use the Force, and Luke is your POV character, so he has this idea, which means we have this idea that the Force is kind of like this superpower kind of thing. And, great warriors use it to do great warrior things or whatever. And then we meet Yoda. And Yoda is not... I wasn't even trying to make this point, but just Yoda made it for me. Wars not make one great. Looking for a great warrior. And Yoda, even though Yoda's in character at this point, he laughs it off like, yeah, that's not what this is. And Yoda's teachings to Luke are very little if any of Yoda's teachings to Luke are not about any sort of physical combat or whatever. It's all very much mindfulness. And it's it's the kind of thing where it's like, it's the antithesis lesson. It's not the lesson Luke was expecting. By extension, it's not the lesson that we were expecting as the audience.
Right.
But it expands your vision of what this thing is and what it can do. And that is Yoda. And without saying anything further about the prequels, let me just get this out of the way. Remember what I said about the wrong lessons.
Right.
Yoda in Empire is Yoda.
Yeah. Yoda lays down the foundational philosophy and structure of the Force and to a lesser extent the Jedi. And that, ironically enough, that foundation that's laid down in Empire isn't necessarily addressed in Jedi and is taken in a completely different direction in the prequels. But then, as eventually we'll get there, the sequel trilogy in The Last Jedi is brought back to a lot of what Yoda was talking about in Empire. And I think, and again, we're going to get to the prequels when they do. I think one of the things that the prequels do well is show how much, by the time we meet Yoda in Empire, how this character like so many other characters in this franchise, grows beyond their mistakes and learns from their mistakes. Now, granted, when Empire is being made, not all this is known. And one of the great crimes of the prequel trilogy is trying to retrofit to the original trilogy. But this is kind of one of the things they get right. Because Yoda's kind of screwing up left and right in the prequel trilogy. But when we meet him in Empire, you can see the lessons learned from that. And
we'll talk about that when the time comes. But
right, and that just kind of goes to, again, the performance. Unintended consequences is a phrase that's applied to so many things in life, and I think unintended consequence is a phrase that you and I would both use to describe Boba Fett.
Sure.
Whereas many fans would say unintended blessing or discovery, I think you and I kind of fall on the side of unintended consequence.
I mean, he looks so cool, dude, and really
the design of the character is great. He is a visually awesome character.
Oh, dude, he's undeniably cool to look at. To be fair, in Empire, he is presented very cool.
Yes.
He gives Vader a little sass without much reproach. He has a cool gravelly voice that was later replaced, but Jeremy Bulloch, you're my boy. You're still in my heart.
I don't think Jeremy Bulloch was the voice. I think he was just the guy in the suit.
We'll look into that. But in any case, I like the OG voice just fine. Thank you. He was presented very cool, and somehow that didn't resonate enough with George to give him much to do in the way of being that cool, or at least cool enough to warrant a better death in Jedi. But the fans took to Boba Fett in a big bad way and made him larger than he had any right to be in fandom circles over the next 20 years of Star Wars' existence, to the point where now we have a show that is not Boba Fett. But if you squint real hard and you're not super versed in all this stuff, you might think it was Boba Fett. But as we know, it's not Boba Fett.
Right. The character, the look of the character and everything spawned an entire subsect story in this universe, the story of the Mandalorians and that culture and that world. And obviously we learn more of Boba Fett's origins in the prequels.
Bear in mind, he was supposed to just be a stormtrooper.
Yeah,
that armor was built to be like an elite stormtrooper, armor, and things evolved.
When you look at the original Ralph McQuarrie designs,
I mean, the original suit was white.
There's a very distinct line between the stormtrooper design and Boba Fett's design.
The original costume was literally white, though, man. Like there's pre-production photos of the guy in it, and it's like, man, Star Wars is ripe with that kind of stuff. If you really want to get into it, look for production photos and pre-production photos and Ralph McQuarrie art, and it's just like, that stuff is so mind-bending. Seeing it evolve, it's a lot. Again, Star Wars captured. I mean, I'm using the past tense. I don't mean to, but it really did capture the imagination in a way nothing else could. And Empire, on topic of our show, Empire was just so paramount in taking your imagination and letting it run wild with possibilities compared to where we were in Star Wars New Hope. And Empire just pushes that forward so hard.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, Boba Fett, he's so cool, he's edgy, he's the Gambit of Star Wars.
The Gambit? Oh my God. That's pretty good. The Gambit. He speaks with a Cajun accent.
he's that character that when you first kind of discover it, he's one of those things that hooks you in. But as you kind of grow and learn and consume more and watch more, a lot of times people kind of like, yeah, he was that initial hook, but he's not what constantly does for it. For some fans, it's not the case. For some fans, he's still to this day their favorite character. My friend Brian is a diehard Boba Fett fan, fully admitting of all the faults of the character, that he essentially does nothing in Empire, that he has a terrible death, and his special edition appearances are annoying at best. But yeah, he's the Gambit of Star Wars.
That's fair. I'll listen to that.
That's fair. I'll allow it. So now we come to, as we did last week, the 1997 special edition of Empire. And of the three films, of the three special editions, I feel Empire is the least egregious in changes that were made. Because yes. I think for the most part, in my personal opinion, save for one thing, the changes made to Empire work in the film. The three big changes that come to mind are the Wampa in the opening scene, which is the only thing that I'm not crazy about. Putting Ian McDiarmid in as Palpatine.
Yeah, I don't like that.
In the hologram scene. I think that works. I think it gives you that continuity. And just the original scene just isn't. The guy looks like he's got like massive tumors coming out of his forehead. And then Cloud City. Cloud City is much more.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Flushed out. You can see more of it. It's much more of how it was designed to look like a kind of a 1950s sci-fi city. I think as far as the Emperor scene and I think the Cloud City scene, I think they really work. I don't mind them the way I do a lot of the other changes in the other special editions.
I can do without basically all of it. I don't think it adds anything.
What's wrong with seeing a better Cloud City?
It takes away from the design that they ended up with on film, which I thought was really cool, with the white walls and the rather pristine look of it. I have to look at now like CGI matte paintings that are clearly CGI and bad matte lines around actors that were not originally there. No, I'm not feeling it. It wasn't broke. It didn't need to be fixed. I think there's something to be said for the fact that George messed with this film the least, mostly because I think he knows that it's the best one, and he knew he was smart enough to at least leave well enough alone, and he probably also was being respectful of Irving Kershner, who was his instructor in film school. So, there is that to contend with as well. Empire is the one George had the least to do with, and it also happens to be the best one. I don't think those two things are a coincidence. So, without getting too deep down that, anything George was going to change was not going to be for the better. I think it was perfect as it was. None of those changes in this movie really do much of anything for me. The Wampa, never needed to see it. It was left to the imagination, and whatever I could imagine was better than seeing, CGI snow monster for a scene. Didn't need it. Superfluous. Doesn't have to be there. It's fine.
I mean, we did in the original cut. We did see it. It's just not the way George had intended.
We saw it in small glimpses. We saw its face and we saw its arm, and that was it. That was enough.
The toy was one of my favorites.
Yeah, we didn't have to see the thing eating whatever it was eating and yada yada.
Yeah,
wasn't needed.
But I'm fine with the putting Ian McDiarmid in as the Emperor. I'm not so crazy about the changes to dialogue. That was obviously unnecessary.
Dialogue changes are terrible, and I don't like the makeup job that they in that redone version. I don't like the way he looks. It looks weird. I feel like it. Maybe this is just me, but in Return of the Jedi, the Emperor looks a certain way, and every time he shows up in other instances where they try to make him look like the Empire or the Emperor looks in Jedi, it just looks bad.
Right.
I don't like the way he looks in the special edition of Empire. I don't like the way he looks in was it Revenge of the Sith? Yeah, when he gets the butt forehead after the lightning. What? I know what they're trying to do, and it's like, you're really bad at this. Stop. You did it once. That's enough.
No, I mean, I don't. There's definitely a difference in how it looks from Jedi to the other instances of.
And
obviously, Jedi.
We are overlooking. We're overlooking one other change. That was changed and then changed back. They fixed it in the whatever version is out right now, but in the original special edition, how dare you forget the scream when Luke lets himself fall after he loses his hand to Vader and finds out that Vader's his father. They added that scream, which, by the way, if you want to feel even dumber about it, because I'm not going to feel dumb about it, I'm going to feel insulted by it, is the same scream that they used for the Emperor in Return of the Jedi when he gets tossed down the pit at the end. They use the exact same scream for Luke when Luke falls down the pit in Empire.
Yeah,
George,
I forgot about that.
George,
yeah,
buddy.
They fixed it.
Did you think we wouldn't recognize George? Did you think we wouldn't know? Come on, buddy.
Yeah,
Empire is. I'm gonna. I don't use the word perfect, willy nilly. But if you were to tell me Empire was a perfect movie, I'm not arguing with you.
Interesting. I would have to give that a lot of serious thought, because to me, there's only ever been one perfect film, and that's Casablanca.
Empire is pretty magical.
Magic is not to be denied, but to say it is perfect.
It's pretty perfect. I mean, I don't know. What are you gonna crap on an Empire?
Are you talking like from a story perspective or a filmmaking perspective?
Both. Either one.
From the story perspective, I'm maybe using X-wings against AT-ATs, because those proton torpedoes can be pretty potent. I'm not using armored tugboats against AT-ATs.
We don't know that they had a fleet of X-wings on the planet.
They had at least 3 in the hangar,
but it took a lot more than that. They needed.
That is probably all you need.
But for all we know, they were. But let's just think they may have been strategic resources that they needed for the larger fleet, so they didn't want to risk losing them against fighting the AT-ATs on Hoth. Just putting that. I'm just thinking out loud.
Knowing what I know about the ships, I will politely tell you that's not correct. But yeah, as far as story, but no, as far as like film making, as far as it's actually made as a film, I would have to really like sit down and view it, just not for pure enjoyment, but as like a real critical look at it. But I'm not saying your statement is wrong. I'm just saying that I've never thought of it in that way, but I've never had like reason to try and find it that way. For me, like Casablanca has always only ever been the only perfect film. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with Empire.
It's great. I love it. I love Empire.
It's fantastic.
It's so good.
Let me ask you this: in your video game career,
yes,
how many AT-ATs have you done?
Oh God, Who was the pilot of the one that brought down the AT-AT?
That was Rogue 2. The pilot's name escapes me at the moment.
What was his gunner's name? Jensen.
Jensen.
I am Jensen.
No, that was Wedge. It was Wedge.
Oh, it was Wedge?
Wedge was the pilot, yeah.
Oh, dude, I am Wedge. I have taken down an AT-AT, sir. So many times.
You know, and it's funny, like, technology being what it is, advances. We've gotten gameplay experiences that were unfathomable back in 1980. But you know what? That Atari 2600 Empire Strikes Back game, that's still... I'll still take that one over something like, Battlefront, or even like Shadows of the Empire was very revolutionary in the Hoth battle. And
Rogue Squadron is still probably the
Rogue
benchmark.
Squadron. To me, that Atari 2600 game,
it's satisfying.
When you hit that one flashing pixel and you were able to blow up an AT-AT in a single shot, that was you felt like a Jedi in that moment.
Didn't get any better than that, huh?
It did not get any better.
That's funny. That's funny.
So yeah.
It's dude, Empire is I don't know. Look, the only reason we're even having this conversation in 2020 about it, and the only reason that Star Wars exists in the form that it does now, is because Empire was just that good.
Yeah.
If it stunk, stunk, none of this matters. Like, Star Wars becomes that one movie that was really great, and then its lesser sequel, and that's probably it. But Empire was awesome, and Empire set the whole thing in. Yeah, right. Yes, you said it.
Like, Star Wars dug the foundation, laid out all the materials and everything. Empire was the cement of the franchise that the house was built on.
Yep. And we haven't even talked about how cool as he was in A New Hope, Han Solo is even cooler in Empire.
Yeah. I mean, he shines. He's making a real play for it being his movie. I still think it ultimately goes to Vader, but obviously we talked about Luke and Vader, and but Han and Leia and their journey. It's funny because, like, their journey not being ultimately as interesting as Luke's and Vader's in this film, but Han is using every moment of screen time he has to the maximum of his abilities. And then we get Lando in this film. And again, like, there's with these episodes, what we're doing right now, we're not going to cover everything for every film. Because again, we want this to be something different than what's been done in the past. But we can't not discuss Lando, the smoothest brother in the galaxy. Just Billy D. Williams is a PhD in coolness. He keeps calling him Han.
He calls him Han, and we didn't care.
We don't care. It's Han, but Billy D will let you go. We kind of get two versions of Han Solo in this film. We get a Han Solo that we met and have journeyed with since the original Star Wars film, and then we kind of get Han Solo from the original Star Wars film again in Lando.
Yeah, we kind of get the scoundrel redemption arc all over again.
Right. And so it's he's really great. That blue cape, man, he makes that thing work.
It's I don't want to say like I'm not trying to like poo-poo the guy's career or anything, but he's so cool. It's almost a wonder that Billy Dee didn't have a bigger career outside of Star Wars.
Well, Drew, there is racism in the world, so
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
yeah, so I mean,
there's still
it's not his fault Carl Weathers came along when he did.
Okay.
Because you can make the argument.
They're both awesome.
They're both awesome. And
have they ever been in a movie together? Oh my God. Could you imagine?
I don't think they have been.
That's a travesty.
Today. I would pay for that today.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
Get them both in there. A movie about okay, here it is. Carl Weathers plays a retired football player who has to have his arm amputated.
Because of course he does.
Because he's Carl Weathers. And Billy Dee Williams is the therapist that teaches him he can live life again.
Fine. But take my money.
As long as Carl Weathers loses an arm.
The mind wants that Batman sequel with Billy Dee Two-Face. You know it.
Oh man. That would have been awesome. That would have been awesome.
We'll never know, but that would have been cool.
No, we got Tommy Lee Jones. No, thank you.
Yeah. We did get Aaron Eckhart briefly, so take what you can get.
We did.
But Billy Dee would have been. It's fun to think about. It's fun to think about.
I had Two Faces, Billy Dee, and to a lesser extent Richard Mole.
Fair. Have we not? I mean, the Han and Leia love story, and like.
I mean, you kind of knew it was going to go one way or another with either Luke or Han, and you could probably see like seeds of it kind of being more Han than Luke in the original Star Wars film, just because there's not that same chemistry there. And obviously, again, we have another example of story growing and changing organically where, if Leia is Luke's sister from the word go in Star Wars, we do not have them making out.
No.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
It's just, I mean, it's the love story's done very well. It's believable.
It's great. And again, it's sold by, man, I mean, Carrie Fisher is also tremendous because if she doesn't buy Han, none of this works, and she's awesome in the role. Like, she falls for the guy. But, Han's a lovable, for all his gruff and bravado, there is a lovable guy underneath all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's lovey-looking, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
And come on, man. Like I said, he's so awesome in this movie. When he drops that line, when he drops the I know on her, dude, yeah. That's only he could get away with that.
Truth. Yeah, that's, what, that's really all I can think of. We've got to be coming up on 2 hours.
We are. Yeah, we are. We're on the threshold here, so.
Yeah. So, Drew, do you have any final thoughts on Empire?
I love it.
It's so great.
I love Empire, and if you have any kind of soul, you do too. It's the best Star Wars movie. It takes the whole thing to another level, and arguably it never gets quite to that same high again. But we owe all of Star Wars' enduring legacy, in my opinion, is, yes, it was the first movie that was the pop cultural phenomenon, but Empire is the one that cemented the world, the universe, and all the stuff that we care about Star Wars being. The only reason it still exists to this day is because Empire made it so.
Yeah. Empire is just it's Empire. It has become a unit of measurement for films.
And I can't. You're not exactly. It's the sequel. It is the one everyone points to. The sequel that again, arguably outdoes the original, but expands the original vision and really drives home whatever that vision might have been. It's the benchmark, and that's a powerful thing. It's great. It's great, and unlike I know before we wrap up, there's always going to be the contingent of people that the question, even in our childhoods, even we might have had the question Empire or Jedi as your favorite Star Wars movie, and dude, I'll tell you, it's a no contest. It's Empire, and for reasons we'll talk about next time we talk about Return of the Jedi. I can pick it. I can pick a lot at Return of the Jedi. I can't pick at Empire like at all. It's pretty bulletproof.
Yeah. So as a weird kid, my favorite is still the original.
That's totally fair.
Yeah. All right. So that's gonna do it for us this week, folks. I know we're all in a rough time right now. But just remember, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Things are going to get better, but until then, we're going to be here at least minimum every other week, trying to give you an episode, take your mind off some stuff for a little bit, or in this case, a lot bit. We appreciate you hanging with us. If you want to reach out to the show, send us any comments, questions, anything you want to communicate to the show, you can do so at the following locations. You can follow us on Twitter at Devils Do Pod. You can go to facebook.com/DevilsDoPod. You can email us at thedevilsdopod@gmail.com, or you can find all these resources available to you on our website, thedevilsdopodcast.com. Drew, any closing thoughts?
No. I'm going to give Doom Eternal some time, and I'll let you know how that goes.
Okay. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again in 2 weeks, maybe on some live streams here and there. You never know. But in the meantime, stay healthy, stay safe, stay home. We'll talk to you later.